Rinpoche feels that today, this afternoon, it is a time to give a very general and brief explanation of the spiritual path in the practice of the Anuttara Yoga Tantra. The word Tantra or mantra, this is not something that one cannot even say the name of it. It's important even from the very beginning of the spiritual path, as one is developing Guru devotion, to have the entire path to enlightenment in mind. In developing or cultivating, correcting one's motivation, one's mind in the meditation on the stages of the path, the Lamrim, it's important to have all of the practices of the persons of three capacities, the individuals of three capacities, in mind as one does this. As one is meditating upon impermanence, specifically the impermanence of one's own death, it's also one also keeps in mind the unsatisfactory nature, the nature of discontent of this round of existence or samsara. Further, that one should contemplate that in the past, that is up until now, one has already experienced a wide variety of discontent and suffering and misery, and if one does not now take the opportunity to put the Dharma into practice, to follow a spiritual path, then one will be experiencing even more in the future of unsatisfactoriness, of discontent and suffering. One should consider that in the same way that one is experiencing suffering oneself, so is suffering experienced by all sentient beings who have in the past been our mothers. In contemplating or meditating upon taking of refuge, one should consider that all sentient beings who have been our mothers have experienced suffering in exactly the same way as we have ourselves. Keeping this in mind, and we determine to attain the fullest enlightenment, the highest enlightenment, in order to relieve all creatures from suffering. In order to attain enlightenment, we take refuge in the three rare perfections, the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Whatever kind of topic within the stages of the path that one is meditating upon, for example, also on the impermanence of one's own life, upon one's own death, one is meditating on this too. One should be thinking that for the sake of relieving all sentient beings, all creatures from suffering, I must attain enlightenment. In order to do so, I must have a very pure motivation and be free of attachment for this life. And so with this motivation, one meditates on impermanence, upon death. This is true of this point and all of the individual points in the stages of the path, thinking of all sentient beings and making this a method for gaining liberation, enlightenment, for the sake of all creatures. And so the contemplation of the unsatisfactoriness, the misery that one has experienced oneself, that is in samsara in general, and the round of existence in general, and specifically in the more unfortunate realms of existence, for example in the hells and so on. These contemplations fall specifically in the meditations of the persons, individuals of the small and medium capacity, going on then and seeing all sentient beings as being in relationship to oneself, experiencing the same misery as oneself, and with the motivation of compassion, desiring to attain the highest enlightenment. Then this contemplation falls into those of a person of great capacity. But on all of the points, as Rinpoche stated before, on all of these points in the meditation on Lamrim, the stages of the path, it's important to bring the entire, so the sense, the essence of all three, of the meditations of all three individuals of small, medium, and great capacity into one's meditation. So on the basis of having the sense of all of the contemplations of all three persons, individuals of small, medium, and great capacity, then one looks to who has this ability, the complete or the perfected ability to be of benefit to sentient beings. One sees that this is the Buddha, and so the fully enlightened beings, and so with this, then one takes refuge in such a being with such a motivation. And so then having made such a preparation, that is this Jochu, the preparatory practice, then one continues or engages in the meditation on Lamrim, for example, contemplating the fully endowed human life. And so when one looks about and one sees that oneself and all sentient beings for such a long time, since beginningless time, have experienced this suffering, this misery. One looks, now, what is the cause for this? What is to blame? What is the reason for this? If one searches this, one finds that the answer comes that we have not recognized the presence of a fully enlightened, a fully endowed human life. And that's when comes to the determination to attain the full enlightenment of a Buddha for the sake of all creatures. And so with this in mind, then one says, in order to reach such a state of enlightenment, then I will engage in this meditation on a fully endowed human life, and then one carries out or engages in this meditation. And so although the subject matter of this meditation falls into the category of a person of small capacity, if one engages in the meditation with such a motivation, then the meditation itself becomes a practice of the Bodhisattvas. And likewise, is when moving on to the next stage of meditation, contemplating impermanence upon one's own death, then one thinks again, what is the reason for the fact that I and all other sentient beings who have been my mother have experienced since beginningless time suffering? We see that it is through not recognizing the fact of impermanence, the fact of death. I must, and then one continues in the contemplation thinking that I must by all means attain full enlightenment in order to relieve all creatures from suffering. In order to do so, I shall meditate upon impermanence and death. It's important on each of these points to see what is the fault, what is the reason for one's own suffering, and in recognizing this, then to apply the remedy. For example, in this first one, recognizing and meditating upon the difficulty of attaining a fully endowed human life. Without recognizing the importance, the great meaning of having a fully endowed human life and the difficulty of obtaining this, then one simply wastes one's life by concerning oneself with very trivial things of food and clothing and so forth. This is of no benefit. Likewise, not keeping in mind impermanence and death, this also is to blame for the suffering that we've experienced up until now. If one keeps in mind this impermanence and death, then this incites one to the practice of Dharma. Without such, though, then one is not incited. One does not have this inspiration to practice Dharma. Likewise, if one contemplates the sufferings and the misery of the three unfortunate or lower realms of existence, then this contemplation impels one to take refuge in an object of refuge who is able to protect one, to give refuge to one from such a state of existence. But by not keeping such in mind, not making such contemplation, then one is not moved to take refuge. And so for all of the points in the stages of the path, if one carries this out on the basis of holding the sense in mind of the meditations of the persons, individuals of the three scopes or three capacities, then all of these, because of the great force of these meditations, having this motivation, then they become in fact meditations falling into the category of a person of great capacity, and thus they become a bodhisattva action or practice. And so if one is meditating with this motivation, then even if the entire life is spent just in meditation on impermanence and death, then this itself becomes a practice of the bodhisattvas. As Rinpoche said this morning, that the essence of what he's explaining right now is already included in the George text that we have, in which so it comes in recitation. The essence is there. We're simply reading and following the contemplation, thinking that I and all sentient beings have been existing in this suffering, and then following out this contemplation, looking for the source or the reason for this, and then engaging in the meditation. By doing so, this makes the meditation, whatever it might be, the subject, very, very beneficial and important. If one has this motivation to attain full enlightenment for the benefit of all creatures, it's important also to study, to learn the Vajrayana, the vehicle of Tantra, in order to integrate this into one's motivation. And so, for example, in this morning recitation of the Jochu, there was first the line saying that I and all sentient beings have experienced so much suffering in the past up to this point, and still there is yet much more suffering to be experienced. At this point, when one is primarily considering one's own suffering that one has experienced, then this is primarily a meditation of the individuals of small and medium capacity. But then when one looks further to the suffering, to the state of existence of all sentient beings, looking upon them as being similar to oneself, and then incited by compassion, coming to the determination to attain the state of Buddhahood, for it's only in Buddhahood that one has the perfected ability to dispel the suffering of sentient beings, then one develops this motivation to attain the fullest enlightenment for the sake of all creatures. This motivation itself is bodhicitta. So having this motivation or this determination, I must attain enlightenment. In order to fulfill that motivation, it's important or it's necessary to follow the path of the 6 paramitas, the 6 perfections, and also the Vajrayana. By having this motivation, one is already impelled, or one already has the desire to study Vajrayana, or to learn a Vajrayana. With such a motivation, then if one is making prostrations, or whether one is making mandala offerings, any of these preliminary practices, all of these become a Mahayana or a Bodhisattva action. For example, even if one is just sweeping one's room, if the motivation here is that one is doing this for the sake of all sentient beings, that one might attain enlightenment, or whether one is filling the bowls and making an offering, because the motivation is this, the essence or the sense of the contemplations of all 3 individuals of small, medium, and great capacity is complete. So this also would be a bodhisattva action, wouldn't it? And so whether it's making offerings or any other type of activity in which one engages, if the motivation is this, then this becomes a bodhisattva action. All of this, in other words, all of one's activities can become bodhisattva practices with such a motivation. This becomes then a cause for any type of activity. These become a cause for attaining immeasurable amounts of merit. Having received an empowerment, even if one doesn't directly engage in the practice of Tantra itself, but simply engages in the practice of the perfections and develops this motivation, and then engages in a variety of activity, having the idea that I would like to, I need to, or wish to practice Tantra, then this itself has a very special benefit. No. No. Got you? There is a very famous Kadamba axiom which says that the one who knows how to put the entire teachings of the Buddha, or the entire path to enlightenment into practice, is my guru. This is referring to Atisha, the Lord Atisha. It says actually, when it's speaking, the example for the teachings of the Buddha are something four-cornered, like a four-cornered piece of cloth, like a square piece of cloth, saying that the example is if you pull one corner, then you get all the rest of the corners too. You pull the whole cloth. And there are different ways of interpreting this axiom. One of these, that is how to interpret these 4 points, is relating each of the first 3 points to the meditations of the 3 individuals of small, medium, and great capacity, and the 4th to the practice of Tantra. And so, how it is, collecting all of these 4 into one practice. And then there is Karasavi Koju. And so then another interpretation is comparing this whatever you look at. Another interpretation is not so much counting these 4 and trying to relate each of these 4 points to a specific aspect of Dharma, but like, for example, throwing a die. Any way the die is thrown, it always comes up with like 4 points on the floor. What this meaning is that whatever point of the Lamrim, the stages of the path that one meditates upon, one includes in this or finds in this the essence of the entire path. It's important even in the beginning of the meditation upon the Lamrim to meditate not only on the points of meditation involved in the meditations of the 3 individuals, but also to have in mind the practices involved in Tantra. This is something important to do. That's why it's said in this meditation, having meditated in general upon the general teachings, it is also necessary to meditate upon the practices involved in Tantra. And therefore Rinpoche today will give a general discussion or touch on the general points involved in the practice of Tantra. If one does not engage in the practice of Tantra, but only in the practice of the vehicle of the paramitas or the perfections, the duration of the path is 3 countless eons. Kyabje. Now, what does this mean? The three countless eons, the duration, the entire duration of this earth, with the four sectors or the four continents, together with the oceans and so forth, the duration of this until its final destruction, this is one great kalpa. If one asks how many years this lasts, it's impossible to measure. If so, how does one measure it then? Then one does so in terms of 20 intermediate kalpas, or 20 intermediate eons. When this eon first began, then the sentient beings were self-illuminating, that is, radiant like the sun and the moon. They didn't need to be illuminated by external sources of light. And at that time there was no difference between day and night, and the duration of life, the lifespan, was said to be a countless number of years. The reason for the so in the course of time the lifespan decreased, ever decreasing. The reason for this is that at the beginning of the eon, the world, this world, formed from the mandala of air, or so lung, air, energy, wind, and in the beginning the sentient beings were taking birth in the very highest realms within samsara, for example the heaven of the 33, the heaven free of strife, and then in the course of time then they were taking a birth in lower and lower states down to the state of human beings. In the very beginning of the very beginning of the era of the eon, there was simply nothing at all. In the bottom, in the lower, so thinking in the bottom or the lower part, there formed energy or wind. On the basis of this wind or energy mandala, then there formed water. That's the water mandala. And then in the course of time, the depth of this water mandala grew to a very, very great depth. Many hundreds, many thousands of miles. So specifically 100,000 times a million Bhaksit is roughly 8 miles. There is no there is no number, or there's no count of the width or breadth of this mandala. This is simply one example. This is the manner in which this world was formed. At the same time, other worlds also were formed. On the basis, by the force of karma, then this wind mandala was stirred, and on the basis of this, then the continents appeared. So the golden bases, the golden bases appeared. This degree or this layer of gold was so deep that beneath it there was only there was So this gold was so deep that below it there were only 800,000 bakse, or each of these being 8 miles deep. In other words, it filled the greater part. And then above this, then they formed the water mandala, this being about 40,000 bakse in depth. And then by the force of karma, then upon the basis of this water mandala, then they formed the 4 sectors of the 4 continents. And then above this 40,000 bakse, above this, then they formed the various divine realms or deva realms. And then above this, in the space above these divine realms, then they form the deva realms of the 6 types of world, the 6 types of devas of the realm of desire. Above this, they form the realms of the 1st and 2nd concentration. And then, in the course of time, then the denizens of the realm of Brahma, the mountain of Brahma, then these being devas or divine beings, then these gradually took birth in lower and lower deva realms, coming down through the divine realms of the devas, of the gods of the realm of desire, and then coming down. They came in the course of time. They gradually took birth as human beings. At this time, human beings had bodies of the nature of life and very, very long lifespans. These died, and further in the course of time, then these were taking birth as animals, as pretas or as spirits, and then finally as denizens of hell. When this occurred, when finally there were also denizens of the hell realms, then the eon of becoming, or the eon of production of the world was completed. So upon the completion of this era, of this eon of production, then the lifespan of human beings became less and less. It decreased until it was only 80,000 years. At that time, then the body was no longer of the nature of light. And at this time, there was a division of sexes. so this then was the period of the abiding or the remaining of the world. This is the name of this eon. At this time, so it was this time that the first Buddha of this of these 1,000 Buddhas of this era appeared. Koachik was his name. This Buddha revealed the Buddha Dharma, the Dharma of the fully enlightened beings, and then this Dharma that he revealed vanished. Then later, when the lifespan of human beings was 60,000 years, there came another Buddha who also revealed the Dharma. The name of this Buddha was Setu. And then the Dharma revealed by this Buddha also gradually declined and vanished. And then when the lifespan of human beings had decreased down to 40,000 years, then the Buddha Husung appeared in this world. And then the Dharma of this Buddha also vanished. The lifespan of human beings continued to decline until it was roughly 100 years. At this time, the Buddha Shakyamuni appeared in this world. And so the lifespan of human beings will continue to decrease until it's down to 10 years, and at this time the eon is gone. They're called the eon of weapons. This remains only 7 days. At that time, the world will be completely in battle, in strife, and most of the inhabitants of the world will perish. There will be few survivors from this great conflict, but among those that do survive, they will be finding their way to once again to some discipline, and then gradually, then their bodies will grow larger, their lifespan will increase until eventually the lifespan increases once again to 80,000 years. Having increased to 80,000 years, a number of Buddhas will appear in the world, and then once again the lifespan will decrease down to 10 years. And then when the lifespan is once again decreased down to 10 years, instead of having a eon or a period of weapons, there will be a period called the period of famine. Rather than a period of famine, this will be a period of illness, of disease, and so during this time most of the inhabitants of the world will die of disease. This period will last for 7 months and 7 days. Once again, the inhabitants of this world will abide more closely to spiritual discipline, as a result of which their bodies will grow, once again increase in size, the lifespan also increasing up once again to the point of 80,000 years. Once again, the lifespan will decrease from 80,000 years, during which period a number of Buddhas will appear and engage in the enlightened activities. At the conclusion of this decrease, coming again to the lowest lifespan, there will then be the period of famine. The duration of this period of famine will be 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days. During this time, most of the people, most inhabitants of the world will die. This increase and decrease of lifespan and so forth, this will happen 18 times. During this time, during each of these times, the lifespan and so forth will fluctuate from 80,000 years down to 10 years, and at these 10-year periods, these low points, then there will be these times of great problems, whether it be of illness or famine or whatever, and then. And so after this fluctuation has occurred 18 times, by the time that has happened, then the 1,000 Buddhas and fully enlightened beings of this era, of this greater era, will have appeared. And so we make prayers to encounter these Buddhas during this time. And so then at the end, once again, the lifespan of human beings will increase beyond limit, and at that time the kalpa of abiding will have been completed at the end of these 18 times. And so at that time, no sentient beings will freshly take birth or newly take birth in the hell realms. There'll be fewer and fewer beings in that realm until it is empty. The denizens of the hells will be gradually the karma that has put them there will be exhausted, and they will take birth in either higher realms of existence within this world, or they might go to other world systems altogether. And likewise, the pretas, or the spirits, the tormented spirits, these too will gradually be dying and not taking birth again as spirits, perhaps, and be in a higher form of life. Likewise with the animals, coming to higher form of life. Likewise with human beings, and so on, until the sentient beings are taking birth only in the divine realms or deva realms. With regards to the destruction of the world, there are 3 destructions: the destruction by wind, fire, and water. During these 8 times, the destruction of the world, when the lifespan has gotten very high, is the destruction by fire. In the actual destruction of the world by fire, this destruction only lasts for 7 days. Actually, the world is the great force of this, of major effect from this, comes during the first day, and at this time the beings are in the very highest realms, the higher realms of the devas, and have extremely long lives. They'll all be a much higher, but while this is so, then the world will grow by the force of fire. It will become extremely arid. Even the oceans will dry up. And then furthermore, all of the oceans will dry up, and then the solid parts of the earth, the golden bases, the mountains, and the rocks, and all of these will be completely used up. They will be used up, destroyed, and just simply go up in smoke. At that time there will be the fire of the eon, which will destroy. By the force of this fire at the end of the eon, all of the aspects of substance in the world, rocks, mountains, and so forth, all of these will simply completely be used up, completely burnt up, and such that they vanish. At that time, it's possible that we will be taking birth or have birth in one of the realms of form as a deva, or it's possible also that we might be dwelling in another world system altogether. And then the world will be simply completely destroyed. And then there is the empty eon, and during this eon there is not even energy, there is not even wind. And so there are these four eons. There's the eon of becoming or production, starting with the production of the wind mandala, and then there is the eon of abiding or remaining. There's the eon of destruction, and then finally the empty eon. And so with these in conjunction with these 18 periods, there comes a total of 80 sub-eons or 80 minor eons. With the complete set of 80 minor eons is one great eon. And so this is the duration then of one great eon. But in order to attain enlightenment by the paramita yana, the yana of the perfections, it's necessary to accumulate merit for 3 countless eons.
ya yani dong te de mong ya chiwa dong chu nene ga yin ta te termong chimbo ra chimbo dang chimbo ha de sha da zi de ya ani nga ju nga bu ba dong chimbo le dong chimbo chu le ya zhang mei xi他常面记了呗，常面那些都就要出去他们自我了，这拍戏的地方老辛苦了或者自辛苦的。
Nice. And so now how to calculate the duration of a countless eon? One first has to understand the duration of a great eon, and then one multiplies this by 1 times 10 to the 59th. Being Westerners being very skilled in mathematics, you should be able to figure this out quite easily. And so our teacher, the Buddha Shakyamuni, did follow the path, the Paramita Yana, and this was the duration during which he accumulated land. Buddha Shakyamuni then got it down. And so once again, the Buddha Shakyamuni, from the time that he developed bodhicitta, generated this state of mind, up to his full attainment of enlightenment, he accumulated merit for 3 countless eons. There is one system of interpretation that interprets the enlightenment of Buddha in this way, saying that he accumulated on the path, the Paramita path, the path or the vehicle of the perfections. He accumulated merit for 3 countless eons, and then upon the conclusion of this, then he took birth as the son of a king in India, and then seeing that it was impossible to attain full enlightenment merely by the practice of the Paramita Yana, it being necessary to enter the practice of Tantra, then he went, the Buddha Shakyamuni, he went to the peak of Mount Meru, or Sumeru, and there he received initiation, meditated. This was in the evening, he meditated in the morning, full enlightenment was gained. And so we have the desire to attain enlightenment in one life with one body by means of the practice of the Anuttara Yoga Tantra, the Supreme Yoga Tantra. If one considers that it's only that one would be engaging in this practice of Tantra only after accumulating merit for 3 countless eons, one might think, that's an awful long time, how could I ever do that? One should not feel that we are incapable of doing this. To think so is simply laziness. If one can develop the courage, thinking not only just 3 countless eons, but 10 or 100 or 1,000, doesn't matter, and during this time I'll be practicing giving, cutting off my hands, whatever is necessary in the practice of Dharma. If one can develop this attitude, this is courage. Courage is what is needed by Bodhisattva. And so if one asks, well, I don't really feel I can engage in such a practice where I have to offer my head and my arms and my hands and so forth for 3 countless eons, but would it be possible to attain an enlightenment without having to go through such a very prolonged practice with such great hardship? And so if one can ask that, but in fact it's not possible, it is necessary to accumulate merit to follow this practice. If one doesn't, then one simply, that is not engaging in the practice, then one simply engages in very worldly activities, stealing, lying, engaging in all type of unwholesome actions. If one engages in such a way of life with these many unwholesome actions, then when one dies, whether it's 5 or 6 years from now, 10 or 20 years, whenever it is, then in the conclusion of this life, then one will take birth in the hell realm, in a hell. Why? Because one has accumulated the causes for this. Having done so, how could one not be born in such a situation? If one takes birth in the hell realm, for example, let's say the easiest one, the one with the least suffering, this is one called Yamsu, the one in which one is again and again revived. In this one, what is happening? One is having one's hands and one's head cut off many, many times, such that one dies and is reborn in this hell 100 times each day. And so what happens is simply a continuation of this. It happens again and again. One dies, and then again one is impelled to again take life and engages in this conflict again and again. So thus one is being revived, being killed, and then revived 100 times each day. If one has a very small body, this makes one a little bit less prone to suffering. That is, one doesn't have to have so much physical suffering. But in fact, the beings of this reviving hell, they have a much, much greater or larger body than we. One day in such a hell has equal duration of 9 million years of human life. But although one experiences such great suffering in this hell, one can experience it, and yet there is no benefit to be derived from it. But rather, if one develops this motivation of bodhicitta and then engages in hardships, even if it lasts for these hardships and the practice lasts for 3 countless eons, one shouldn't really feel this is a great hardship or something merely to be very sadly endured. But rather, one should look upon the hardships as completely insignificant, and recognize also that these very difficult practices, like having to cut off one's hands and so forth, these are not practices to be engaged in until one is already quite a highly enlightened being. When the time does come where such type of practices are appropriate, one is already on the bodhisattva bhumis or bodhisattva spiritual levels, at which time even if one gives away one's hands and so forth, there is no suffering involved in this. Rather, one can do it with gladness and with rejoicing. Thus, if one engages in the way of life and the practices of the Bodhisattva, it's something quite easy, and because the goal or the reason for practicing this is to attain full enlightenment, it's something of very, very great meaning and significance. And so it's important not to feel discouraged in the practice, in the hardships or the very difficult aspects of the practice. One should look upon these as quite easy, whereas if one instead becomes discouraged and just simply sets aside the practice, then one simply engaging in unwholesome actions, and one is born in the hell realms and so forth, and the suffering and misery involved in this is without end.
Yes, you job on the job. Cheshire, some of your baggage so sad, the Gale Judge have a Galeti, never young should be shouting Galeti, your money. The suffering to be. The suffering to be experienced in this reviving hell of just one life, if one compares this to the sufferings involved in the entire practice for 3 countless eons on the practice towards full enlightenment, one finds that the sufferings of this hell are much greater. And so, in fact, the practices of the Bodhisattvas are not something involving very tremendous hardship and suffering. It's important not to feel frightful or discouraged with regards to this path. So all of you have already received teachings on the stages of the path. You've already done some meditation on it, and thus you have a desire to attain full enlightenment. So to take example, if there were two individuals today, and one of these coming to the very firm decision to follow the yana, or the vehicle of the perfections, and to accumulate a merit for 3 countless eons, one person like this, and the other person just feeling discouraged with that and not engaging in the practice, and the second person just spending his time drinking and going for parties and going on picnics and so forth, then this person engaging in many unwholesome actions, he would simply, as a result of this, he would be born in, for example, the Avicii hell realm, whereas the other person, day by day, he would be accumulating merit. This person that we were in the hell, when that particular lifetime or in that hell was exhausted, then it's very likely once again he would take a birth in a hell, and then once again in a hell, and once again in a hell, because it's very difficult to rise to a higher state of existence, whereas this other person would just gradually progress towards the path of enlightenment, and such that gradually he would attain it. But when this first person attained this state of enlightenment, the other person would still be revolving, perhaps just going from hell to hell. As Rinpoche has explained that our teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, he first attained bodhicitta as when he was a denizen of hell. At this time he and another person, another denizen of hell, had the task of pulling a wagon, and this was in a hell realm where the ground was simply glowing hot iron. Miller Barotic, Liu Chi, Jata Samuti, Pumbasi, Yuri, the Lord Jawari, Tematuno, Jago Torment about Marble Shuni, the
The situation was that the Buddha Shakyamuni in this former life, he and a companion had to pull this wagon. They had to walk upon this glowing hot earth, and then they were harnessed in fiery harness, and they had to pull the wagon. If they weren't pulled, then they were beaten with a fiery whip.
Mare Chos Chevre. Taram Kudume, Sokala Led, Sijebe, Krompalo Toyagi, some of them would digitally trouble. Digit trouble is a Chashi, what true your mother, the digit trouble is a, and yes, what the children could calamate or Kumado Chever, left you. Ten lovers on two, the Chevas on Gani, Raman Susu led. Les Susu Sad, the Domin Susu Yawa Marva, Shuni, Abranta de Shadi, Yameli.
Buddha looked upon his companion and saw what great suffering that was being borne by him, and there rose in him compassion, not bodhicitta itself, but he felt compassion for his companion, and he turned to the driver of this carriage and said, "You go ahead and let this person free out of his harness. I'll pull for both of us." He said to the driver. The driver just called back to him, "But don't you know that each person must experience the result of his own karma?" He whipped this Buddha in his former life. He whipped him, and immediately Buddha died from that hell realm. That is, so he left that hell realm. Having escaped from this hell realm, then Buddha Shakyamuni took birth as a human being, and at this time he met the Buddha Shakitupa Chimbu. Shakitupa Chimbu, yes. Shakitupa Chimbu. At that time, Buddha was not in a wealthy family, but rather in a very poor family, so he didn't have much that he could offer to the Buddha, but he simply offered a bowl of soup. Manandi Gyushingyo Marina. Yes.
Tati Monoda Vijay Shaja to my Chimutsi, now say, Jiba Corona Shaja Toba. Honey, Kuru Dubasuya, Dada, Sanji Demo Lotura, Dada, the Javatili Namaruti, you had to do Monoda.
And as Buddha Shakyamuni in his former life made this offering of soup, he also offered a very virtuous prayer, and this was the beginning of his practice, and it was so the attainments that he had as a Buddha, they stem or they originate from this time, and it's for this reason that Buddha Shakyamuni, or Shakyatupa in Tibetan, that's why he's, in a sense, he's named after this first Buddha that he met at this time, Shakyamuni, the great Shakyamuni, or great Maha Shakyamuni.
Maharaj said, "Tam jega do sanju togu, so tam jaje chanchu sim gu yo do ta da. De go ba yi zam. Chanchu si je go de long de, yo kong ji ba. Chue ba kong ji che de chen che ta ro me she ba yi ba ta na je su na ja chi mo so ba yi du. Jiao che ma jiao be shi ra ngan de le ja ju du ju ya ga san je da che chue da che. Be chue je she ba kong yo ju yo. Pue a chu ju ju go yo de pue de le bu chi mo yo. Tabari Shugu Malachi to Guamari, Chachis Jabade, Labuchi, Gonu Soja, Chimbuzo, Yachi, Sanjay, the Gavato, Sungu, Ribujimato, Sanjay Gumoto.
As Rinpoche explained before, for any type of action, it's of great importance to have this motivation of bodhicitta, even if it's only in the offering of one stick of incense. By having this very vast motivation in making such an offering, this accumulates a great deal of merit, such that again and again, as these thousand Buddhas are appearing in this great era, one will again and again have the opportunity to meet Buddhas and progress along the path to enlightenment. Even though it might take a very long time, still one is progressing. So it's important not to be afraid of the path, to fear it, but to look upon it as something. The way of the Bodhisattva is being something easy. even in very small practices, whether it's prostration or very, very small practices, if the motivation is very profound and vast, so is that practice. Long ago in India, there was a person that lived by collecting firewood. By living this way, collecting firewood and then selling it, he was gradually able to collect enough for 1 silver coin. The thought occurred to this person at this time that by not purifying his mind and by not accumulating merit, he had ended up in such a situation in great poverty, and furthermore that if he should follow a similar way of life at present, this poverty, this very difficult situation would also continue in the future. At this time there was a Buddha living in the world, and this person took his little bowl or cup that he used for eating, he filled it up with clean water, he put the silver coin inside of it, and then covered the cup with a clean cloth, and he offered this to the Buddha. And then later, so in another life, he took birth as a child during the time of Buddha Shakyamuni. As this infant was still in his mother's womb, his hands, rather than being up here, were by his heart in this position. So he came from the womb, and when he came from the womb in this position with his hands clenched, his hands were opened, and there was found in each hand 1 silver coin. As his parents kept on taking 1 coin after another out of his hand, they took 1 coin and then another coin, kept on taking, but they simply didn't run out. And this was the result, the karmic result of having offered simply in this 1 silver coin, as Rinpoche explained. At this time the person was very wealthy, but he didn't really feel any great need or attachment for this wealth, but rather felt the desire to receive the Dharma. So he went to in the presence of Buddha Shakyamuni, received teachings from him, and in that life attained liberation or the state of arhatship. There are many different kinds of accounts of very peculiar instances that occurred in India, which are along these same lines, but Rinpoche says there's no need to go into this now. Having developed the courage and the determination to practice Dharma, accumulate merit for these 3 countless eons, really looking upon this as something of no hardship, as something quite easy. Having this determination for oneself, it's important then to meditate further on compassion, thinking that during these 3 countless eons, although my own situation is quite acceptable, it's fine, but during this time other creatures will be experiencing unbearable suffering. What can be done for them?
Sanje ji gugu toro jede choka de sabune be susu kali medu de suje gu donga na wa keba phadarja loji gi le rota ru sa me ba loji gi le nyawa ba so me ba me na lu chue ji ke je je ba de go yin da so to me ba de go le tere gi donga ya ne de go la de rota medu wa sa sang dong.
Thinking once again that although this path to enlightenment that I would be following, this is fine for me. There's no problem here. At the same time, the sentient beings that are experiencing the tremendous suffering of the lower states of existence and so on, let alone having to experience such suffering for entire eon, simply having to experience this for 1 year is something unbearable. How could they possibly bear it? How can I bear their suffering?
Loji padarja tarang shuge na la ne tada pa tu ya chuzu tu de ji ri le ye me ja tang shu ya nya tu chu na zu sha yo no me zu de za de yo ma re so ma.
Let alone thinking of the misery that a person might have to bear for 1 year, even having to experience these miseries of hell, for a fire and so forth, even for 1 day, even for a few hours, thinking, how can I bear the suffering of other creatures?
Maranzu lu padarja laba zang ji be me na la chu ne let
alone even a full day of having such suffering, or let alone even one's whole body having to be tormented by a fire, simply having one's hand, not even a hand in a fire or being burned, not even for a whole day, but just for 5 minutes. How could I even bear that? And thus, being unable to bear the sufferings of sentient beings, one seeks a very swift method for relieving them from this suffering. Seeing the need to swiftly liberate sentient beings from suffering, one seeks a swift means for attaining the enlightenment by which this is possible. In order to swiftly attain this attainment of Buddhahood, it's necessary to find a swift path. What path is swifter? The path of Tantra. That is the path of the secret mantra, the path of Tantra. This is something swifter. It's a shortcut or swifter? Shortcut or swifter? Within the Tantra, there are 4 sets. There are 4 sets of Tantras. Specifically. These 4 tantras are specifically the action tantra, the performance tantra, yoga tantra, and supreme yoga tantra. Among these first 3, the action, performance, and yoga tantras, although it is possible to attain enlightenment in one life, it is not possible to attain such in this very, very short human life with which we are now endowed. But however, in the practice of the Supreme Yoga Tantra, it is possible to attain full enlightenment in one short lifetime in this period of corruption. Not only within the practice of the Supreme Anuttara Yoga Tantra is it possible to attain enlightenment in one short human life in this age of corruption, but by following the path revealed by Tsongkhapa, in which the essence of all of the sutras and tantras have been synthesized, it is possible to attain full enlightenment in 3 years and 3 months, 3 days, or in 12 years.
Today, that long you would regular sugar, some that, Chashi said, some other sugar, Mato, some other sugar in the Chantong Chori, Jilton Chori. Kalaja Mogusan, you would give some. Particularly table children, Lomangu Gore, Jivatongu, Kalakabu, you are some channel, some other sugar, some of Karamaju Saturday. Till every cherry show so much. So Sadia Madu, Sanjay.
So this is having this willingness to follow the long path, the path of paramitas, but being impelled or incited to the practice of Tantra by means of compassion. This is a necessary motivation for the practice of Tantra. However, if one is just thinking, oh, this 3 countless eons is such a long time, and it's really hard, and I don't want that. I just want enlightenment. Then, in fact, this is completely improper attitude, the wrong attitude for the practice of Tantra. This is simply laziness, such that one wants to attain enlightenment, but it isn't interested in accumulating merit.
Kare kachi tuda kachi juni che kare jomje je de teni shine peje viva che de sanje ta na je mela re ba ge marwa sal nira kaje se u chum kale kaje je me tere kale je le je ba de tembo ta ni ane chu song lo ni sa ni ge le be be long tong ge be chwa be so le te ne chu da sa le te ne kale je de sanje tere chu
Before the birth, or before the appearance of the great teacher Tsongkhapa, for example, we have the great master Naropa, who endured very great difficult hardships and difficulties in serving his master Tilopa. We know many Westerners know of the biography of Naropa, the 12 or 18 hardships that he underwent in following his guru, and then later we know of the life story of Tsem Rinpoche, the punishment or the very severe discipline he received under his guru Marpa, and in the 22 years he remained in very strict retreat, in which he underwent very great physical ascetic hardships, just living on earth and water. And then there was the incomparable disciple of Tsem Rinpoche, Gampopa, who first developed bodhicitta and then developed the mental quiescence or shamatha, and also vipassana, special insight. And then he had these in union. He meditated upon these in union, was able to, for example, in one time to remain in absorption or in this meditation for 12 days. And he also he received empowerment or initiation from Tsem Rinpoche, practiced Tumma meditation, and in the course of some years he also attained full enlightenment. And so Rinpoche yesterday has already given the accounts of some of the disciples of Je Tsongkhapa who attained enlightenment in that life. And then furthermore, after the parinirvana of Je Tsongkhapa, there occurred many Gelugpa lamas that also attained full enlightenment. For example, there is one example of one lama, Je Menakpa, who he went to Ganden Monastery, which is the monastery of Rinpoche, and this was after the death of Je Rinpoche, Je Tsongkhapa, and so it wasn't possible normally to meet him directly, but he went into the temple, and there he made very great prayers to meet Je Tsongkhapa. But this person had tremendous faith in Je Tsongkhapa, and so having received teachings there, having received Dharma, then he was circumambulating the monastery of Ganden, which was Je Tsongkhapa's monastery, and by the great force of his merits and his faith, he actually did meet Je Tsongkhapa. And then in that very life he became a great siddha, a very, very highly realized being. Upon the parinirvana, the passing away of Je Tsongkhapa, one of his disciples by the name of Kyabje occupied the throne or held the lineage of Je Tsongkhapa. And then then a disciple of Kyabje by the name of Basochuki Gyaltsen then occupied this throne. No. At that time, some villagers, some people with their children went to meet this Lama Basochuki Gyaltsen. Basochuki Gyaltsen looked upon one of the children of these villagers and said, "Please give this child to me. I will make offerings to you in return." Basochuki Gyaltsen adopted this child and taught him Dharma. And so, this disciple of Basochuki Gyaltsen attained a very high state of enlightenment, and there were three. He and I believe Rinpoche said 3 of his disciples are still remaining to this day, as if this land itself were a pure land, or for them it is a pure land. This is one. The indications of this, of the continued, so the remaining or the continued presence of these lamas is sometimes in the mountains. People hear the chiming of bells, of chimes, or they perhaps see a lama flying through the space.
Today is Sama singing the Hajangre. And so
it's impossible to say that by the practice of Tantra that such a person can attain enlightenment, but such a person cannot. Panam knows.
Panam Chumus, there's the Julia.
And Kongitsen Karare?
Chukidoji.
The dwelling place of Chukidoji, one of the disciples of Baso Chuki Yansen, is that right? One of the disciples of Baso Chuki Yansen, this is in western Tibet, in Tsam.
Konga Loma de Peche, the Yavalusan to do it. Yavalusan to do Pugu, Sadu Shudu, to change sooner longer favorite. To your longer marry the Tito Dala. Sooner longer, Pugu Lagun, Yavalusan to do Pushu, Messanala, Burnu Diora, Yedio.
Nino, no.
To change your doji, to change to me to Pegamara, Messilabe, Lano Shecha, your married. Then you walk Ukabuchi Chadi, Shady, tended to a tended to a
Tended to my
you want all the shadow, Devo just soon.
Beginning a new tape. Beginning a new tape.
So, Karisa, there was one disciple of Chukidoji, this Lama that was remaining for such a long time that Rinpoche was explaining, describing, and so there was one boy, Wensaba, as a young boy he was sick, he was ill and lying in his bed at home, and Chukidoji, who was already a very great Mahasiddha, normally he would be living high in the mountains, he wouldn't be coming down to the village, but he appeared as a very old man and reciting Dendel Durba. This a set of verses, a short text composed by Chetsongkala. This child that was sick, that is Wensapa, as he was sick, he heard the sound of this recitation, and he felt great faith, admiration for it. Having heard this and felt such great attraction and faith for it, he asked that the reciter of these verses be invited inside. And there appeared a very old and venerable-looking monk or bhikshu. The child looked upon this old monk and feeling great faith towards him, asked him if he would accept him as a disciple. The Chukidoji replied that in such and such a time, in such and such blessed water. Notice this mountain where the child, so this Wensapa went to meet this the great Mahasiddha Chukidoji. This became a very sacred place, a place of pilgrimage, where the water had a very great blessing, or a very great blessing to it.
And left many prints, footprints and handprints.
And also in this area there appeared in rocks and so forth footprints and handprints of these great beings. Notice. And so this area with these many special signs, these have been seen by Rinpoche himself. And so this youth, Wensapa, he went to a house or a dwelling on this mountain where he met Shuki Dorje and received teachings from him. He put the Dharma into practice and he became a fully enlightened being. And so it's for this reason that he's called Wensapa Nyingchu, which is we find this in the prayers, the prayers to the Guru lineage. Then there was a disciple of Wensapa by the name of Kirup Sangye. He too attained enlightenment, but without great difficulty in just a couple of years.
No.
And then a disciple of this guru was Losang Chökyi Yentsen. Losang Chökyi Yentsen. And so the oral tradition, the oral teachings of Je Tsongkhapa was passed from guru to disciple through such gurus as this to the present time. In this mountain that was the abode, of Chökyi Dorje, this is considered to be a very, very holy and blessed place in which there are two caves, and then within these caves there comes a little stream of water which comes out from like a little tiny sub cave or like an indenture in this cave too, and it comes dripping out, and the water from this has a very beneficial effect, a very great blessing to it. Near these caves is also a monastery by the name of Umgun, which was founded by the Guru Wensapa. And nearby is a very, very sharp mountain, a very pointed mountain, the name of which Rinpoche has forgotten this at the moment. And then on the 15th day of the 4th lunar month, this is the day of Buddha's enlightenment, then the shadow from this very pointed mountain falls exactly last. Stone. The shadow from the stone. On the peak of this pointed mountain there's a stone, and then the shadow from the stone on this 15th day of the 4th mountain, this falls exactly on this cave of which Rinpoche was speaking. At this time, at this very special time, when the shadow of this rock falls upon this cave in which there is this water, it has a very special effect on the water, such that the water turns white like milk. Heruka, and this is said to be the white seed of Heruka.
Kuda Tunja Sojure, so the Shuri Kangala Deo,
at one time there came two lamas from Dashilumpa monastery, and they came to this cave at this very special time of the 15th day of the 4th month, and they came with two golden vessels, and they came in the night and they collected this water. So it had this very special effect. They collected this in these golden vessels, and then took it back the next day to Dashilumpa, where there was they had a great assembly of the monks, practitioners of Dharma, and this was offered this water or nectar. This was offered to the people gathered there. Rinpoche says he's been to many of the very sacred places in Tibet, this being one of them, this place where this cave is. People come there by a variety of means, by riding horses and so forth. They come to near to the cave, and then one has to climb up the mountain, comes to this cave, and there one takes off one's upper garments, and then kneels down where this water is dripping down, such that it drops upon Rinpoche is describing his own experience, where he took off his upper garments, and then he knelt by this water where it dripped on his head, and it comes down, and then on the ground just in front of one, where these drips are coming down, Rinpoche said he saw tiny relics or ringsa, like holy relics, which one could see. He could see, but if he went to touch them, then there was nothing there to be touched. This is one example. Rinpoche said he's been to many of the holy places in Tibet, and he just wanted to share this experience with us. If one wants to engage in the practice of Tantra, nowadays there are the very well-known or renowned practices of Vajrabhadava, Heruka, and Guhyasamasha, these three, and then the fourth, Kalachakra. And the lamas of Tibet look upon these as being equal practices, that is, not differing in quality, that each of these is equally effective towards the attainment of enlightenment. And among the lamas of Tibet, there were ones that had as their chief practice, or were especially following, Vajrabhadava, Heruka, Guhyasamaj, and also Kalachakra. There's also the meditational deity Hevajra, which is a principal deity in the Kyabje tradition, also in the Sakya, also in the Gelugpa. In giving the empowerment of Kalachakra, this tends to be very elaborate and difficult. First of all, one needs to have a grain or sand mandala, which has to be prepared, and then the initiation itself is something very elaborate, having something like 10 or more parts or stages to it, which can take a matter of 4 or 5 days. In Tibet, the chief lama that would give this empowerment of Kalachakra would be the pension lamas. Before Rinpoche came from his homeland up to central Tibet, Sekon Dorje Chang gave this initiation to him. Sekon Dorje Chang. Rinpoche le nama Before Rinpoche came to central Tibet, Sekon Dorje Chang had already given this initiation in central Tibet. Rinpoche did not receive it at that time. About 10 years after Rinpoche arrived in the monastic universities in central Tibet, then Khamdasa Rinpoche, Dorje Chang, a very great Lama, also gave this initiation. At this time, Rinpoche did receive it. And furthermore, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has also given this empowerment, and from him, Rinpoche has also received this initiation. But besides this, the bestowal of this initiation was not so common in Tibet. And so in giving the initiation or empowerment of Kala Chakra, first of all, the preparation in making the mandala and so forth is very elaborate and difficult. Likewise, there are very few people that are doing the recitation, doing the meditation for it, and so this is not such a widespread practice. But among the three practices of Vajrabairava, or that is also Vajrabairava, Chakra Samvara, and Guya Samasha, these are more common practices, and the initiations of these are given by many lamas. The Kala Chakra is the same as these other three practices insofar as they are both leading to the same attainment of full enlightenment, but the actual manner of practice is somewhat different. It's a different tradition. In the collected works of Jetsongkhapa, there are just a few prayers written by Jetsongkhapa with regards to Kala Chakra, but the chief treatise on the practice of Kala Chakra is found in the collected works of Jetsongkhapa's disciple Kyabje. As Jetsongkhapa's disciple Kyabje did compose this very elaborate and complete volume, it's a very large volume on Kala Chakra, there was no need for Jetsongkhapa also to write a corresponding or counterpart for this. Rather, he simply wrote a few auxiliary prayers to Kala Chakra that complement this text by Kyabje. Whether one is practicing following the practices of Vajrabairava, Chakra Samvara, or Guya Samasha, in the general layout or form of the practice is the same in terms of first following the stage of generation and then the stage of completion or perfection. But in terms of the specifics of the meditation involved, there will be different visualizations, and there will be some points of differences in these different practices. If one is asking, if there is such a practice that can yield full enlightenment in just 3 years, 3 months, or in 12 years, why is it that we haven't yet attained it? The reason why is to be found in ourselves. First of all, it is necessary to have a perfect keeping of spiritual discipline. It's necessary to have, in order to attain full enlightenment in one life with one body, it's necessary. In order to do so, it is necessary not to have committed any of the 14 root tantric downfalls. This is necessary, but in fact for us, it's impossible for us even to pass one day without such a downfall occurring. And so thus this spiritual discipline is extremely difficult to follow. Furthermore, it's necessary to have very, very firm concentration. This also is So such concentration, very steady concentration, is also difficult. And as Rinpoche was explaining before, it's also necessary to have the very bountiful motivation of bodhicitta, such that one although one is able to bear the having to go to help oneself, one is unable to bear the suffering of others. And so this too is difficult, but be this as it may, what now is necessary in order to engage in the practice of Dharma, practice of Tantra, what first is necessary is to receive an empowerment. In order to receive the empowerment, it's necessary to enter into the mandala. It's necessary to have the ability to keep the spiritual discipline involved in the practice and to have the full development of bodhicitta. Let alone are having any very firm or very sound development bodhicitta, we're just beginners, we're just beginning to receive teachings on this practice. But even if one doesn't have this spontaneous motivation of bodhicitta, it's possible if one can just temporarily develop this by special meditation to temporarily develop this motivation. This is sufficient for receiving an initiation. So with this type of motivation, then if one receives the initiation, keeps the pledges or the vows involved in accruing from or coming as a result of the initiation, meditates upon bodhicitta and investigates the nature of emptiness, this is sufficient. This is sufficient for entering into the practice of Tantra. And so by having this bodhicitta that one has temporarily developed, it's possible to engage in the practice of Tantra, although there are varying degrees of receiving an initiation. And furthermore, it's possible, even if one does not attain full enlightenment in this life, it's possible to attain enlightenment at death, or it's also possible to attain enlightenment during the intermediate stage, that is the stage of bardo. In other words, various times.
che ya so che di digre shoge de de to go ure ni me go da de o ge to go ure shita ka ure de de o de tru shita ra da ge je shi je de shi go ma de me ro su ba she go ure she di chang ni ya a ju che sam to sal to she go ire ka le kha ji go de be bu to da ure de do ri cha ba yu do o shu de digre ko bi ju ge yu sha de digre o du go cha su de de ge la be ge lam de 다시 배터버리고 다치는 주 그거에서 지시에 거시되고 그 도도되고 내가 그 시에 삼바르고
At the end of the week, on Saturday and Sunday, Rinpoche intends to fulfill the wishes of the disciples here by giving first of all the initiation of Vajrabhairava, involving the what's called the 13 deities in the mandala. He will be giving this, and then following that the initiation, the Janang of Avalokiteshvara, so specifically at Tujichambu. These initiations will take a long time. They take a number of hours, and so there is some difficulty involved simply due to the duration of them. People are welcome to come if they wish to. They might experience some suffering in the knees, but it's possible to come to gather here and then to come out again to take breaks like this during the day. Those that are do not feel the time is right, they do not yet wish to receive this initiation. There's no they can do whatever they like. There's no need to come. And then after having given these initiations, then Rinpoche will give some explanation on the Supreme Yoga Tantra, that is the Anuttara Yoga Tantra. And so this is enough for this afternoon. The time is out. And so as Rinpoche explained yesterday, among the 4 classifications or sets of tantras, the supreme is the highest, or the supreme yoga tantra, and in this there are 5 stages of practice, or these can be further synthesized to 2 stages of practice, the stage of generation and the stage of completion. And that which is to be purified in the practice of the Supreme Yoga Tantra is the ordinary birth, death, and intermediate state. And the purifier, that is the means for bringing about such a purification, is in accord with or similar to that which is to be purified. And so now in the practice of the completing stage of Tantra, there are the 3 stages of, so causing the winds to collect in the central channel, such that they first enter, abide, and then merge. 3 stages of practice. These corresponding to what occurs to these winds during the process of death. And so in the actual process of death, then the collection of winds occurs in that way with these 3 stages, and then likewise in the practice of the Tantra on the completing stage, in order to one likewise has these 3 stages of the collection of the winds, and as a result of which the clear light appears. And so in the process of death for an ordinary being, this death taking place by the force of karma, then by this force, then the winds collect in such a manner. But But for the ordinary person, like this clear light does not appear just as he dies. But now, likewise, in the development. But for ordinary people, that is without having arrived at the stage of completion in Tantra, before doing so, then this collection of the winds with these three stages will not occur. That is, will not occur before death. Only will it occur such for the yogin that has reached that stage. Listen, but now for the yogin who is on the stage of completion, in order for him to collect the winds such that they enter the central channel, abide and merge there, in other words, for this process to be complete, there first has to be the practice on the stage of generation, in which by the force of one's belief or by the force of one's imagination, one imagines these winds to be entering in such a way and following these three stages of process, and one imagines that the clear light is appearing. And so this is artificial, it's something that is made up or is artificial, but this artificial process must precede the actual process. So now, before death, in order to bring about these three stages of the collection of the winds in the central channel by means of in the stage of completion, it's first necessary to have this, so the prior development on the stage of generation. What needs to be done here are the three stages of employing the death as a means or on the path to attaining the Dhammakaya, the bardo on the means as a means on the path for attaining the Sambhogakaya, and then the birth, employing this on the means as a path or on the path for attaining the Nimanakaya. And so first of all, Karasa. That's the way
Padu Truva Dam Java, Logo Jodo Jinzaba, or Jabejonogo.
No less.
Logo Lamchis. Kaneba Padu Truva tickets over the Tabu. Logo Jodo Jinzaba, Padu Longo Lamchis.
Tambo Chiva Jukulanki Yodova, the Reset and Davo Resumare. Reset and Davo Resumare.
We say, Chiva said and Dabu Durim, and Chuku said Lamchitico.
No less.
Here on the Padu Truva the Dava, Logo Lamchitico.
No less. And so now the first of these, that is employing death, the ordinary death as a means for attaining, or as on the path to attaining the Dhammakaya. This is corresponding to or acting as a cause for attaining the clear light. And so like taking one example in the sadhana or the self-generation for Yamantaka, this is one stage, And then the next stage would be employing the ordinary intermediate period, a stage, the bardo, on the path to attaining the Sambhogakaya. At this point, then one visualizes oneself in the youthful form of Manjushri. And now as a substitute or something that is similar to the bardo being taking birth, this is the transformation of the ordinary birth into the Namanakaya, and what is done in the sadhana, the self-generation, is one now taking the form of, or generating oneself in the form of Yamantaka or Vajrabharava. So it's necessary to meditate upon these three transformations of the death. This is in the stage of generation, the transformations of death, the transformation of the intermediate period, and the birth. Although one needs to visualize, like, make this artificial situation, but in fact the winds are not at that time entering the central channel as being visualized. Whether one is practicing the Tantra of Vajrabharava, Goyasamasha, Chaksamvara, in any case, one needs to follow this threefold practice of employing the death, intermediate period, and birth on the path to attaining the three bodies of a Buddha. And now but one of the things that is done on the path, on the stage of generation, is that the accumulation of merit, a tremendous accumulation of merit. And if this is lacking, then merit is lacking, then it's impossible to develop Kadasa, to develop on the stage of completion. Rinpoche is correcting me on one point of the translation, and that is, rather than employing death as a means for the Kadasa, for example, attaining the Dhammakaya, it's employing the Dhammakaya on the path to attaining enlightenment. The three kaya, etc. And so that was one example, employing the Dhammakaya, in other words, taking the result and employing this on the path to enlightenment. So the Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya, Namanakaya, the three. Notice, and so now in terms of meditating for example in the Tantra or the practice of Vajrabharava, then there will be meditation periods or sessions. These can be of varying lengths, very brief, intermediate, or very extensive, long. And so now in the preparation for these sessions, there is first great emphasis on taking refuge, developing bodhicitta, and then because of the great blessing involved, then one offers prayers, or one visualizes, offers prayers to the Guru lineage. And in visualizing, so in reciting the Guru lineage, one first of all recites one visualizes Vajradhara in the form of Yamantaka on the very top above one, and facing in the same direction as one is oneself. And then beneath him the Yishikandama, and then beneath her Lalita Vajra, and then Amoga Vajra, and then Yishi Jungme Peme, and then Pema Vajra, Dipangara Rakshita. He is next. No.
Rebirth Sadhana, Kyabje Zong Rinpoche, Jawalusan to do. Fatima, the Lama Tana, Chiranso, Shusamare, Bagi, Chilamana, the Lama coming to 6 years, somebody would set up.
And so one visualizes then the entire Guru lineage from Vajrabhairava, all the way coming down through to Tsongkhapa, to his disciple Kyabje, Dokten Champa Gyatso, and so forth down the Guru lineage, down to the Guru from whom one is directly received the empowerment, and imagining these, visualizing these one upon the other with very slight space in between. One should visualize this Guru lineage, thinking of each one as being of his own nature, these different Gurus, but having the appearance of the simple form of Vajrabhairava, having one face and two arms. And visualizing this, then one very forcefully, one very clearly, energetically visualizes these Guru, and then visualizing them, then offers prayers to them. And then one successively recites the names of these Gurus of the lineage, and then is offering supplication to them, or request to them of blessing. And so as one offers supplications to one of these Gurus after another, then coming from the top down, they merge into the one directly beneath them, merging until finally there is the Guru from whom one has directly received the empowerment, and then finally this Guru, also in the form of Vajrabhairava, then merges with oneself. And then upon the merging of one's root Guru, that is in the form of Vajrabhairava, merging of him with oneself, then instantaneously one appears oneself in the form of Vajrabhairava. As one visualizes, or as the one's root Guru merges with oneself, all of one's obscurations, all of one's impurities, one imagines to be dispelled. And in this gross body of flesh and bone, one imagines this just simply vanishing into space. And then one brings to mind the view of emptiness, contemplating or thinking all phenomena are of the nature of emptiness, devoid of inherent existence. And then at this point, for a very, very brief period, one employs the Dhammakaya upon the path to enlightenment. And then Rangilurve, Rangisim. And so at this time then one visualizes or imagines one's own mind to become inseparable from that of Vajrabhairava, being of the nature of emptiness and bliss, and taking on the aspect of blue light. And one should imagine that this blue light is the Sambhogakaya that one will attain eventually in the future. And this point here is the employment of the Sambhogakaya on the path to enlightenment, and then from the nature of this blue light, then one imagines this transforming into the simple form of Vajrabhairava, having one face and two arms. And then one should think of this being as being a form of Vajrabhairava that can be seen by impure sentient beings, and thinking of it as being the true Yamantaka or emanation body of Vajrabhairava.
사도지에 그대로서는 사실 많이 셔 싱그러디 고동다는 많이 셔래 말아니 요거 도강가에 오진 셔 당데 뭐 주년 류버진 매라 말와 차니기 두도 터번제 봐 용로 쉬어봐 용도 주로 라마 두도 터번제 예불라 쉬어봐 고도 공부 어디에 지금 고 셔지 차니 용도 고로 주송 삼바지.
And then what is the form of Vajrabarabha? This we've seen from the Tankas. The head is of a buffalo with two arms, and then in union with the consort Rolangma, and then so the rest of this, the details of this can be seen from the Tanka, Rinpoche said.
다들 얘기되는 제차도 강가로 시작되고는 시라고 우리 들으시죠. 다들 계지 중심 사네. 나조로부터 들어가로 노리치로 시작해. 도저 노리치로 맞제네 초요. 노리치로 사지기 되려. 노리치로 제야 노리데 도저 수수 당시 그저 도지 초요나 된들이냐. 노리치로 들어 당시 송송와 시네. 도지 토지 당시. 주부 송고 당시. 자자고 당시 송상고리.
And so now, just for the daily practice, that is for the self-generation, it's not necessary to, at this time, to bless the Vajra and bell, but if one is to engage in the self-initiation, then this is necessary, in which, there is the three parts. And so in this part there's a threefold blessing in which the blessing of the bell is related to the mind, this related to the mind, that of the Vajra to the body, speech. Right. And then the Vajra to the body, body onless. And so the bell to the blessing of the bell relating to the speech, the Vajra relating to the body, and the Vajra to the mind. Mudra for the body, lotus, the Vajra for the mind and the mudra for the body. So when thinks of the Vajra is symbolizing or representing the method aspect of the Dhamma, and then the bell representing the wisdom, and for the entire path to enlightenment, all of the practices are included into these two aspects of the practice. And so from the beginning of the path, in the relationship that is in the devotion to the Guru up to the full attainment of enlightenment, one should imagine all of the entire method aspect of the practice being represented or manifesting, appearing in the form of this Vajra, and then the entire wisdom aspect appearing in the form of the bell. No. And so both of these one should think of as being of the nature of the ultimate bodhicitta, that is the mind of great bliss, or transcendental great bliss. This is the object, this is the subject rather, the mind which cognizes or realizes the object, emptiness, and then one should imagine these to be in union or merged inseparably, and it is this inseparable merging or union of the great bliss and emptiness that is the very essence of the path to enlightenment. And so one should imagine this to recognize in this inseparably, and it is this inseparable merging or union of the great bliss and emptiness that is the very essence of the path to enlightenment. And so one should imagine this to recognize in the symbolism that this is what is to be attained on the path to enlightenment. Whenever one uses the Vajra and bell, or for example ringing the bell and so forth, if one keeps this in mind, then this acts to accumulate a great deal of merit. Without relying or depending upon devoting oneself to the method and wisdom aspects of the Dharma, and simply ringing the bell and using the Vajra, there's no benefit from this. It's kind of like a cow wringing back the little blob of flesh on its throat. And then the Vajra should be taken, as Rinpoche just showed, or revealed with those two fingers. It should be taken up and then held, as Rinpoche is now showing, in his right hand at the heart. And then thinking as one is holding the Vajra there. Holding the Vajra there, then one should determine that I must attain this method, which is the transcendental great bliss, and then having this in mind with this determination, then recite the mantra that Rinpoche just recited.
Ranga Gumba Hayo Gungo down, total Hayo Nigo, the President Yuma Jubala, and the Dutch Bishi Wadi. There is a Nigga Yogi Younger Payment somebody, the Yoga Doji somebody. You're using a payment of Dojin Rilla, then the Dutch Bishi, Dojit Dutch Bishi, Kivat somebody. The Dutch Bishi, the Chess on the Dong Ishi Latane, and he well. The
reason for holding the Vajra in these two fingers is signifying a much later stage of practice on the path. That is, eventually in the practice of Tantra, one actually does practice with an actual consort, so in union with an actual consort. But this stage now in the development, the stage of generation, one is not yet fit to do so, but there is like a symbolic representation of it. Here one is visualizing one's consort, and these two fingers are representing the Vajra, or the Vajra of the male and the lotus of the female, the union of these, and in dependence upon which, in the actual state of completion, in the union with the consort, it's in dependence upon this that the transcendental wisdom of great bliss arises. And so this is like signifying that, or indicating this later practice. And so since the chief one can say the chief tool or the chief mind to be developed in the practice of Tantra is this union of the emptiness and the transcendental wisdom of great bliss, then again and again throughout the practice of Tantra, one is employing means to eventually develop this state of wisdom. And one point that I missed was that with the development of this transcendental wisdom of great bliss, this acts as a means for purifying the two types of obscurations to liberation and to full enlightenment.
Tela ishi nga yorda, melonda ishi, chawdu melonda ishi nga ishi, suta ishi, chawdu ishi, chun ishi nga yorde. Ngujingre, Ujila Dubanga Yor, the most famous Cheto, Dojitilla Ranga Yor, Dojitilla Ugarachi, Shoyi Rashi Chana, Dojin the Yuma, Tezan Doji, Sundry, Tembo, Ishangwa.
At present, we do not have the wisdom of the inseparability of emptiness and great bliss, but although we do not have it in its elementary stages of practice of Tantra, it's still very, very helpful and important to imagine ourselves to have it, to visualize this. And then eventually, in the final stages of the Tantric practice, when this is actually to be developed, and then upon the attainment of full enlightenment, when this wisdom is brought to perfection, at that time then one develops the 5 types of wisdoms, the mirror-like wisdom and so forth, and these are being all of the same nature, and yet they are so manifesting or appearing in different ways, and these 5 types of wisdom are then symbolized by the 5 prongs on the Vajra, on the 5-prong Vajra. And then one takes, having taken the Vajra into one's right hand, then as Rinpoche showed with the left, one picks up the bell and then holds this with the how do you say, with the bell open, that is the open part up to the top, and holds this by one's left hip. And so there's great merit that is accumulated simply by using the Vajra and bell in this way, having the understanding of the significance of them, and further as one recites the mantras, for example, each of the mantras beginning with the syllable Om, just by the utterance of this syllable, it has 6 benefits, and it can be very meaningful. It can be so especially helpful if one knows the significance of the aspects of the mantras. So the proceeding was the manner in which to grasp or take up the Vajra and bell. To take up the Vajra and bell, and then following this then is the further movement of the Vajra in a revolving motion like this, like Rinpoche just showed, and then at this time then one takes the bell and sounds the bell at the level of one's heart. And so as one is sounding the bell, one recites this mantra. And so there's a great deal of significance to this mantra. Each part has its own meaning, but this would take a long time to explain. But in any case, as one is sounding this bell, and so the sounder inside the bell, I don't know what it's called, but as it goes in the 8 directions, the 4 cardinal directions, and the 4 sub-directions, one should imagine this proclaiming or indicating that all phenomena in all directions, all phenomena are of the nature of emptiness, lacking inherent existence. So having made this gesture with the Vajra and the sounding of the bell, then one practices the mudra of embracing, which Rinpoche is now showing. And so at this time one is visualizing oneself as Vajrabayarava in union with the consort, and so this is indicating, like this is so the mudra of embracing the consort. And so like So first of all, the vajra is the tukidachi, so the pledge of the mind, literally the pledge of the mind, and then the bell is, and then the pledge literally is the pledge of the voice, and then the mudra, this mudra is the pledge of the body. No. And so this completes one short explanation.
So this
Yes, and so as one is using the vajra and bell, it's important to know how they are to be used. That is, the bell is to be rung at the level, or sounded at the level of the heart, and the damaru, the hand bell, is to be sounded at the level of the navel. There are some people that get a bit carried away and start flinging it around by the shoulder. This is an indication they don't know what they're doing. And so now there is the blessing of the inner offering. And so before And so before the main body of the practice and before the offering, the blessings of the dharma, the type of offering called dharma, there's first the blessing of the inner offering, and for this one keeps a small vessel, it could be a small cup or something of this nature, on the table in front of one filled with a liquid, and then this is to be blessed as an indication or in the process of blessing the inner offering. So in general, it's important to recognize that among the tantras, that the supreme yoga tantra is the supreme means among the tantras for attaining enlightenment, and then within the supreme yoga tantras, the tantra of Vajrabhairava has 5 qualities of superiority, or 5 very special qualities. These should be recognized. Within the Supreme Yoga Tantra, there is the female or feminine tantra, which is emphasizing the development of the clear light, and then the male or masculine tantra, simply male tantra, which is emphasizing the development of the illusory body. And then in the male tantra, there are methods used to methods of employing hatred, attachment, and confusion on the path to enlightenment. Among these 3, the practice of Yamantaka is a means for employing hatred on the path to enlightenment, or in the practice. And so there are other means besides Yamantaka Tantra for employing or using hatred in the practice of Tantra. And now within Yamantaka itself, there is the red Yamantaka, black Yamantaka, and then among the various forms of Yamantaka, the form that we are practicing, that is a Vajradhara, this is a superior one, a very special one. It's important to recognize that, but at the present, there's not time to go into it. In the Tantra, on the lineage of Vajradhara, there came 5 guru lineages, which very, very slightly vary one from the other. One of these is coming from the translator Ra. And then another one came from the Nibade. Cholu. So the second one from Chulama. And then after this is the Shang tradition or Shangluk, the third one. This is the fourth, the first 3 being the chief ones. This fourth is the name of a translator. And then there's the fifth one, this is the name of the fifth, this is the name of a translator, and then there's a lineage given his name. So the distinctions or differences between these are very, very subtle, but we emphasize what's considered to be the chief among these 5, the lineage coming from Ralotawa. And then within the lineage of Ralotawa, there is the old lineage, the intermediate lineage, and the new lineage. And we're following the new lineage of Ralotawa. And so this new guru lineage of Ralotawa, this goes back to Jetsongaba, but not before him. And Jetsongaba, and so what happened in the time of Jetsongaba was he received the complete teachings, empowerments, and so on, oral transmissions as quintessential teachings on Vajradhara directly from Manjushri. Then Vajradhara has 5 qualities, 5 superior qualities, which are not to be found in other meditational deities. Yabetado Truba Inza, Shira Druyagmi, Gordia, Metobi, Shira Labrambavati, Anaye, she was thinking like them, some bad. There was a tattoo, Saja Manga. How you saw the body share with you look at Megani Shilly? Follow the money share there, or second Megani, there you did it. And so among these five, briefly, the first of these is that the teachings on the development of the illusory body found in the Rebirth Tantra are also found in this practice of Vajrabhairava, and that in the special teachings, or like the special teachings on the development of the clear light, which are found in the Chakrasambhara Tantra, are also found in this practice of Vajrabhairava. And then the third quality is the follower, the practitioner of this tantra, this practice of Vajrabhairava, is given a blessing, or especially develops the power of wisdom, intelligence, understanding, by means of which he gains a very clear and profound realization of emptiness. This is the third quality. And then there's something else we need, and this is, even though one is very, very heavily under the influence of obscurations or unwholesome mental imprints, we need a means for swiftly attaining full enlightenment. And furthermore, especially in a period like this, a very degenerate period in which the influence of bewilderment, confusion, attachment, anger are very, very strong, and there's very great engagement in unwholesome actions, the five extremely unwholesome actions. In such a period, the practice of Vajrabhairava is a very swift means for attaining full enlightenment. Normally by the Karasa, by taking life, by killing, this causes the fuller ripening effect of this is that it decreases one's own lifespan. And now in the practice of the Vajrabhairava Tantra, this can be transformed. For example, the Master Ralotsawa took the life of 13 highly developed beings. The one son of the translator Marpa, his life was taken by Ralosawa. There was another very, very famous Mahasiddha who had attained very, very great powers by devoting himself to the Yidam Puba, the meditational deity Puba. His life was also taken by the Ralosawa. There was some conflict between these two meditators. But then Ralotsawa replied by manifesting himself as Vajrabhairava and sending back he employed very ferocious powers, and thus brought an end to the life of this other master. The villagers in this area, they sang a song, or they made up a song about this, that Karasa, I still didn't get it. Mama Zotin? What? The first part is gathering time. Gathering time. gathering parents. And so the song went, very roughly stated, that during the early part of the life, then one meets one's parents, but in the latter part of the life one doesn't. And then the song went on that for a few days the moon is white. That is, just before it becomes full, the moon is very, very clear in the sky. But by the 20th day of the lunar month, then it's not to be seen again. And speaking, and the next line of the verse went on in terms of the conflict between these two. That this meditator that devoted himself to the meditation of deity Purba, he gave one strike, or with one bolt of his power, and that was all he had to do. That was all he could do. Whereas the ability or the extent of the wrathful power of Ralotsa is without limit. And so this area, this region in Tibet where this other meditator was overcome by Ralotsa, it's called Putu, saying it's a place where the Pubu, this dagger, which is like representing this meditator, referring to this meditator, this is a place where he was overcome. That's why it's called Putu. So in total, Ralotsa brought an end to the life of 13 highly developed tantric practitioners. But although he did this, his life didn't get shorter, but it went longer. He lived to about 150 years. And at this age, then he had still quite a pale or healthy complexion. His face was free of wrinkles, and he was in the appearance of a youth. There is no more wrathful deity, no more ferocious deity or manifestation of the enlightenments than Vajrabarava. And the three types of Yamantaka, all of these are in fact Manjushri. And so these are the forms in which, so these are the wrathful forms, ferocious forms of Manjushri. And if one asks why does Manjushri manifest in such wrathful forms, is it because he's angry? The answer is no, not because he's angry, but rather out of the force of compassion. That he manifests in this way in order to, I believe, in order to transform hatred in the mind of the disciples into the means for enlightenment. The meditational deities, or these yidams, they are not actually angry. But by the force of great compassion, they take on this form of ferocity. And towards what? Towards what is this ferocity directed? It's directed towards a very subtle dual appearance, or more simply stated, it's directed towards the grasping to an inherent identity. There are 3 degrees of ferocity in which Manjushri appears, like very, very slight and then medium and then tremendous. The latter is the form of Vajradhara. So in brief, so briefly then, in the practice of Dharma, there come many interferences and obstacles, and there is no better method for dispelling these obstacles than the practice of Vajradhara. And so in the 16 arms on either side of Vajradhara, we see the mudra as Rinpoche was showing, which is like a threatening mudra, and this is directed towards both the worldly and or mundane and supramundane deities, saying, and he's demanding, and this is like indicating or symbolizing his demanding of these deities that they bestow upon his disciple, his follower, the cities, and if they don't, then there's this. So if you don't do it, then Rinpoche says, then I'll threaten you, he said. And so this is referring to the supramundane deities. Now. And so the right hand, in this mudra this is directed or referring to the supramundane deities, where the left hand pointing down, protectors, whereas the left hand pointing down this is like referring to the worldly or mundane, so protectors or deities like non-human forms of life, saying, and this is like a warning, a threat, that you must not give any interferences or harm or provide obstacles for my disciple in his practice. In the actual practice of the sadhana, the self-generation of Vajradhara, there's one point at which one is visualizing oneself in the form of Manjushri, and then later one is visualizing the head of Manjushri above oneself, and also Manjushri at one's heart. And so Manjushri does himself appear or visualized, used in the sadhana. In the practices of the other forms of Yamantaka, one does not actually visualize Manjushri, but still they are emanations of Manjushri. And so those following this practice of Vajradhara develop a very, very powerful understanding intelligence which enables them to swiftly attain realization of emptiness. By especially devoting oneself or emphasizing the ferocious practice or ferocious aspect that comes by the force of this, the pacifying aspects. One doesn't need to do a separate practice for this. If one emphasizes especially the pacifying aspects, then by the force of this, then the ferocious aspects will also come. There are many accounts that can be told about the great Mahasiddha Lalita, who at a time when the Tantras of Vajradhara had disappeared or vanished from this world, from the land of India, that he, by the force of his supernormal powers, he went to the Dakini land or Dakini realm of Ugyen, and there received teachings. And so now, And so now in the blessing of the inner offering, there are 4 stages. The first of these being the process of dispelling, somewhat in Tibetan, dispelling what? Dispelling types of interferences, harmful spirits. Secondly, purification, purifying the ordinary appearance. And then thirdly, the generation or production generation. This is actually generation. And so this is important to be blessing the offerings, not only for the inner offering, but for any type of offering, even like the offering of water. It's important to do so because it's possible that like harmful spirits could enter this and then create problems for oneself. And so with the recitation of the mantra, which I just recited, this dispels any type of interference or these harmful spirits. And so in practicing this with regards to this inner offering, having the bowl and the liquid in front of one, there could be, or one can imagine, spirits or harmful spirits in the vicinity of that. And then as one recites this mantra, then at this time one is still visualizing oneself in the form of the simple form of Vajradhara, and then from the hum, the syllable hum at one's heart, one may emanate 1 or 10 or many forms of Vajradhara, going towards the inner offering and then completely like chasing away or dispelling any type of interferences of spirits there. If one visualizes 10 of these emanations of Vajrabhairava, one can imagine them going into the 4 cardinal directions, the 4 intermediate directions, up and then above and down. Or one can simply, if just visualizing one, this too will be sufficient to dispel all types of harmful spirits. Or one can visualize as many, one should do what one finds most suitable for oneself. And then one reabsorbs these wrathful emanations into oneself. So this completes the first of these 4 stages, and then going into the second one of purification, one recites this mantra that Rinpoche has just recited, the meaning of which is, it says that the empty nature of all phenomena is I. And so the meaning of this is, so the indication of what should be done now is that one meditates upon emptiness, and so without having an understanding of it, one is in something of a fix. But one should meditate upon now looking upon the inner offering in front of one, like the vessel and then the perhaps black tea inside of it, and meditating upon the empty nature of this, thinking that this is something merely imputed by the conceptual mind that does not exist from its own side or completely independent of the mind. And thus one meditates upon emptiness. And having meditated in this way, then one imagines this ordinary form of the vessel, the ordinary vessel, and then the black tea and so forth, imagining this simply vanishing into space. The reason for doing this is that without having it simply vanish, then we're still, in a sense, stuck with the ordinary appearance of it, whereas we are seeking to meditate upon this as being of the nature of wisdom, so wisdom. But in order for this to happen, first we have to get rid of the ordinary appearance, and this can be done by simply imagining it to vanish into complete empty space, or emptiness. Empty space. And so what is to be purified here, or dispelled, is the grasping to true existence. But this technique of having the ordinary appearance vanish, this is found exclusively in the practice of Tantra. And so meditating then upon the inner offering and its vessel as being of the nature of emptiness, then one visualizes or imagines one's own mind, which is the realizer of this emptiness, as being of the nature of great bliss, of the nature of Yamantaka's mind, that is a Buddha mind, a fully enlightened mind, and then from the nature of the inseparability of the emptiness, so the emptiness here and then this mind of great bliss, then the inseparability of the union of these two, this is in a sense the substance from which the offering is to be generated. And so how does this manifest? First it manifests in the letter or in the syllable yam. And then this syllable yam melts into light and then appears in the form of the wind mandala, like part of a moon with one side of it is cut off, like round on one side and then just cut off straight on one side. And the color of this is blue. And so now the shape of this wind mandala is said to be like a bow, but this has already been explained, like curved on one side, round on one side, and then flat on the other. The shape of this wind mandala is said to be like a bow, but this has already been explained, like curved on one side, round on one side, and then flat on the other. And then on each of the points, that is the sharp points of this figure, on each of the sharp points of the corners, one visualizes a white vase, and then standing out of the vase, a flag that with the flag fluttering down like that.
So one
visualizes this wind mandala as being a manifestation of this wisdom of great joy which cognizes emptiness. And then above this, and from the red syllable ram, and then there is the syllable, the red syllable ram, which then melts into light and then appears in a red triangle. That is the fire mandala, which is a red triangle. With flames curling around the edges of it. With the one point facing towards one and then the other 2 points facing away, like so. And then on each of the corners of this triangle, one visualizes the letter A, a white letter A. And then these 3 white syllables A melt into light and then appear in the form of 3 heads. And so one visualizes like these 3 syllables then merging into light and then appearing in these heads, like heads that have just been freshly cut off, and so that the eyes and the teeth, it looks very, very vivid, very almost alive. And then, so the eyes, one should visualize as blue, and then the hair, like the hairline coming right down to here, what Rinpoche was showing. And then, no less. The Kada's, no, and then the eyes, like Kada's eyes looking very, like vivid. So, that one. No less. That's right, eyes vivid. And so there's a special word for like the little stones that you put like under a campfire, like 3 stones upon which you put the pot to cook. These 3 heads are like that, those 3 stones. And then in the center of these 3 points, one visualizes the white letter, the white syllable A. And then this white syllable A melting into light then transforms into a large skull. And so this is like a pot you put on the stove. The skull is facing upwards like a pot, and it's eventually like something you'll be cooking and like fire will be coming up. And then the front of the skull here is facing towards one, and then the back facing obviously away. And so now in this vessel, in this vessel, one visualizes in the eastern direction, that is the eastern direction facing towards oneself, one visualizes the white syllable drum, and then this transforms into balangisha, into a cow. This white syllable drum, this is an aspect or representing manifestation of the mirror-like wisdom, and thus is associated with Namanangse Vajrachana. And then this melting into light, the syllable melting into light appears in the form of balangisha, so literally cow meat or cow. And then there will be various animals that will be visualized inside of this skull. Their heads are pointed inwards towards the center, and they're resting on the right side. And then resting or standing upon the left, at the level of right where the left shoulder is, one visualizes then the white syllable go, or white letter go. Go. And so the go, this is the first letter in the Sanskrit word for cow, which from the this is actually an ox. And its It's black, and one should visualize the entire carcass. And then now to the southern direction, this is like over to one's own left, over here, then one from the letter A, the red letter A, one visualizes this transforming at the A again relating to the wisdom of equality or even wisdom, and related also to Amitabha. And then this transforming into light, and then appears in the carcass of a dog. The dog also lying with its head towards the center, lying on its right side, and then from its left shoulder, the letter Gu. That is, so the silver letter Gu coming from its left shoulder. Kugara. In Sanskrit, kugara means is a word for dog, and that's why Gu is this is visualized as that's why the letter Gu is visualized. There was a mistake, and that was not the red was not the the syllable in the south was not red but rather yellow. And out of the northern direction there comes the red letter Zim, and from this melting into light appears in the form of like the carcass of an elephant. And then from this elephant, the carcass of the elephant is marked by the syllable Da.
Then this is the church in the longer meal head is in a long hill mima we is then this is the church, then they can be double daddy, nuggets. That John to come to a Daisha. John the come young who used to tell you about that. John to be here, you come young which you used to do.
And then now to the north, there appears the green syllable come.
John to come let you it. Come young who used to show the Dasha.
Come in Daisha. Hey, some of that. There is a and so now to the north there appears, one visualizes the letter Kam, and then this transforming into light appears appears as a carcass of a horse, which is marked by the letter Ya. This is marked by the syllable Ha coming from its left shoulder. And it's because the Sanskrit name for horse is Haya. And then from the center there appears the syllable blue, and from this appears a human corpse. Mishamabo. This is a red corpse, and the Karasa, this. Not it? Notice. So there are two ways of visualizing this. One of these being that one visualizes the man kind of like horizontal to oneself, with his face towards the south, like his head pointed towards the south, and his face pointed towards oneself. The other one, his head towards the elephant. And the other one is his head facing towards the elephant. The elephant's head faced towards him, and he faced towards the elephant, like so. The two systems, whatever one likes on that point. And then on the left shoulder of this man, the corpse, one visualizes the syllable Na. Nara is a Sanskrit word for man.
那里香港人说啊，香港叫做香港不得做给下去的，我怕的，所以恼怒的都是搞的这样。因为没晓得我说的给那个看书了，我这个现在香港推个，他他们看到有说女生啊的，下路哪里就之前没什么。
Teaching me Tsem Rinpoche.
Tsem Rinpoche.
Me Tsem Rinpoche. 그래서
샬로라 이게 맘 제메 사는 람 우리 샬로 람레죠 람빵 담시부터 제마다 마마게다 그거가마다 드문시게 사는
나래
요원제는 사다 추다 매다 lon고 사는 샬로 람레죠 제메서 바스 이게 람 세부지 용수 줘봐요 저기 제지 랑가버지 체면도 샬로 람레죠 제제 세부
이게 고랑 가보 말해
이거 고랑 가버지
가보래 너레스
제제 세부지
Now listen, now to the southeast direction, that is right to the left of the ox carcass. One visualizes the white letter lung, and then this transforms into light and appears as excrement yellow.
마네주어 라다레 참바 나 소노모데 딸 발란다 시샤바루데라 디세체
나래
나 시샤다 너무 시샤바루 소노모데라 데레 소노도 맘레죠 이게 맘 후불레 줘에 안데 라다레 참바 라다 타리
나래 And now this was the preceding was between the ox and the dog. Now between the dog and the elephant, that is to the southwest, one visualizes the yellow letter mam, and from this appears blood. This transforming into light, and there appears blood. And marked by the syllable ra. And rata is the Sanskrit name for blood. Rutadaya is also another name in Sanskrit.
Now
to the northwest, between the horse and the elephant, one visualizes the red letter pam, from which comes white. So that is a semen. From this comes from the red palm there comes semen. White bodhicitta. Nare shui. Shingere. Shu tsamba. Shu. And this is marked by the syllable shu. And now between the horse and the ox. Kamar. And from the letter tam, from the green letter tam, there appears marrow. And this is marked by the syllable na. Kama hakugu naye. Kama sana ruko nanbet sopsole shakti.
Kama de la shashen la ri soyo. Shashen tik lever. Tik lever ma juje ge ti na ma lever chiore. Tiri.
Malas.
Ti ne kama de lever tamade. Lever me shashen tamare. Shashen rab lever. Shashen ri ge jungi lever. Gele. Shashen tama kama
rabte
lever.
Shashen
rab.
Malas.
Video na la shashen siyo. Sadhana shashen siyo. Shashen la rendu tas. Kama ri jaga. Ije ko. Tan ri suwa. Tan ri suwa ngabate. Suwa. Jide. Mule chowa. Jide. Dire. Mamle chowa. Mamle chowa jaga re. Tamde dojor lame sabya bangi suju suwa re. Di pechi di muda. Mama ke dan senji jo chani. Yungu. Ta kandre. Panu sabya re. Nijo dan tusula. Bangi yungu re. Nije de la. Rulama sabya bangi sondu. Sondu de. Rulama jeba kole. Huli tigo hungu sabasi jeba re. Seda huli chungwe. Pishu mui sabasi chani. 别那个有，那不是现在的红也是三不起整个都在这些就没有。我去提议的就是哪了？旁边有的，另外你就可能的旁边有的。现在帮忙的红的送下去有就有，他现在改变着，有时有帮不来中外说用到就是老的啥个，帮不来中外，提出。
Now in the center, this is center like completing the visualization of these five, so-called five nectars. In the center, one visualizes the blue letter Bam, which is the seed syllable for the consort of Vajrabhairava, who is Rolangma in Tibetan. And so this transforms into urine, which is then marked by the letter Mu. One should imagine these 10 substances as completely filling the inside of the goddessa, filling the inside of the skull without any kind of space between the 5 types of meat and the 5 nectars. Upside down. Notice, and so now this was the production, and then the production or generation of the offering, and then there has to be the blessing of it. And so above it, one visualizes an upside down syllable Om. This is a white upside down Om. Above that, a red upside down A. And above that, an upside down Hung. So now continuing to visualize myself in the simple form of Vajrabhairava. From the Hung at one's heart there come rays of light which strike the 2 flags on the wind mandala. Okay, and so striking the wind mandala, they cause the wind to be stirred up, and this caused the flags on the wind mandala to flutter. And then as a result of this, then the fire in the fire mandala bursts up. And so now the flame from the fire mandala. And then now the flames from the fire mandala burst up and then heat up this skull, which is like a pot upon these 3 skulls, the 3 smaller skulls. So it heats up the big skull and thereby heats up the contents of the skull, that is the 5 meats and the 5 nectars, and then causes all of these to melt. And one might have the qualm at this point thinking that there could be the bones, like the bones in these various carcasses, such that you could boil and melt the soft part, but then the hard part would be remaining over, a bunch of bones in the bottom. But this is improper, like a wrong way of kind of visualizing. That one should visualize the carcasses, all of these things, as being very, very fine and soft, such that you can break them off and you could break them up right in your fingers. In any case, when the fire comes up, one should imagine all of this to be melted. And then we remember that on the left shoulders of all of these carcasses, there were visualized the letters, the syllables. One should imagine nectar falling from these syllables going down into these animals and making them just right on the point of very easily melted down.
咱没这样嘛，用就咱们想。到这个嘛，到查到金马不过是没有过用下的，家长就是这个。如果说用这个没有过用，跟别人用一张，反正是加更多的。
And then as this is boiling, one should imagine all of these various substances like the urine, the excrement, the blood and marrow and so forth, all of these being all mixed up together, bubbling all together, so it becomes like a homogeneous blend to be about the color of black tea. And then as this is boiling, then the vapor or the steam coming up from this strikes the Om Ahum above. And then immediately there appear white rays of light from the Om, red rays of light from the Ah, and blue rays of light from the Hum being emitted in all directions. And then one visualizes the physical blessings of all of the Buddhas, enlightened beings of the 10 directions, all of this verbal blessing of... Visualizes the physical blessing of all of the Buddhas appearing in the form of Vairochana having 3 faces and 6 arms, being white of color, and all of these merging upon this letter, and then merging upon the Om, and then merging, dissolving into it. And then all of the verbal blessings of all of the Buddhas appearing in the form of Amitabha having 3 faces and 6 arms, this also merging or dissolving then into the letter A. And then all of the mental blessings and powers of all of the Buddhas appearing in the blue form of Akshobhya having 3 faces and 6 arms, these are merging and dissolving into the blue syllable Hum. And then upon these 3 mergings, then the top letter, the Hum, this falls down into the pot, into the skull, and then circles around like it's stirring the solution, and then dissolves into it. And then Hakusana. And then immediately upon the melting or dissolving of this Hum, the syllable Hum, into the solution, one imagines it completely cooling down and becoming cold, and then its color becoming white, or even whiter than white, like the color of very pure mercury. And so now with the merging of this first letter, the Hum, one visualizes transformation of these substances. First of all, the color, which previously was not so pleasing, now it becomes this like the color of mercury, very, very clear. And then the odor of it before would have been naturally quite foul. Now it becomes, one imagines it to be very, very fragrant, very delightful. The taste, which also would have been unsavory previously, now one imagines to be more delicious than like any type of thing that could be found on earth. And then also in terms of the touch, before it would have been very, very hot and painful to the touch, now quite pleasant to the touch. And so these transformations all occurring with this first dissolving. And now with the following of the second letter, the A, one imagines a solution, or the substances in the skull, to transform into nectar. And so this it transforms into nectar of various types. The first of things being like the nectar of medicine, which dispels illness. And then there's the nectar of life, which eliminates death. And then there is the nectar of wisdom, which makes for a freedom from defilement. And so the letter A being related to Amitabha. This is why there's this. So this is how it's due to the fact that this is related to the ceaseful level of Amitabha that there come these three types of nectar. The first of these being that just by having just a drop of it on the tongue of this like medicinal type of nectar, that one becomes free of all illness. For the deathless nectar, or the nectar of life, that this could be just like one imagines this could be just put like a bit into the mouth of a corpse, and it would immediately spring to life. And then of the third type, the nectar of wisdom, that by taking just a little bit of this on the tongue, experiencing this, one would experience the wisdom of the inseparability of emptiness and great bliss. And so now with the following of the third letter Om, this falls in and so dissolves into the substance or into the solution, and one imagines the nectar as being inexhaustible, but not bubbling over the edge and falling out, but still being inexhaustible. Such that if one took out 1 cup, or it would not become any, there would be no less in the skull, or 10 cups, or 100 cups, or 1,000. No matter how much one takes out, it never decreases in its level or amount. Rando any rangi tukala randa antele jembe semjin tamje mi badagyo.
Oh yeah, ranga thamya bache.
Nare.
Ni thala sije tamje yo bache.
Nare.
Yao nana te cho. Yao nana oma awsu de sije thaje ge de tingi be rangi tukala uze tune sije tamje ge de basha de su ku ne timne de wale.
And so there are different ways of meditating at this point. Like one is still in the simple form of Vajrabhairava, and previously one had the disc of the sun disc at one's heart. If one wishes to, it's good now to transform the sun disc into a moon disc, and then visualizing in the center of this moon disc oneself in one's ordinary form, surrounded by all sentient beings, and then visualize all the obscurations and unwholesome mental imprints of oneself and all sentient beings coming into this pot of liquid, or this pot of nectar before one, and thus being completely purified. This is a very excellent means for purifying the mind. Another way of visualizing is simply to visualize without the special visualization at the heart, simply to visualize all these obscurations and unwholesome mental imprints of all creatures, again all merging and coming into this skull, and they're being purified. And so at this point there are also other meditations that can be followed, for example, for increasing the life. Perhaps Rinpoche will explain this tomorrow. This mantra, the blessing of this inner offering, is extremely important in the practice of Tantra. This is why Rinpoche has given so much time and effort to explaining it. And although it might be a little bit difficult at the beginning, by practicing it becomes a very easy practice. And it's important one, if it's not as if one can just immediately jump to the practice involving the channels and the winds and the essence and so forth. There aren't any shortcuts. And so this should be held in mind with the way of practicing the meditation, and one should do it again and again and accustom oneself to it, and by doing so it can become quite easy. And likewise, not only during the formal meditation, but like when one is about to sit down to eat, if possible, one should also bless the food in this way. And likewise, making offerings of the Dharma, if one also makes this similar blessing of the offering, this also is helpful. The blessing for the Tsok, another offering or gathering of offering, the blessing is also the same.
This giving of the blessing. This is the means for actualizing the pill of nectar in the practice of Tantra. This is the means for doing that. For any kind of before eating or drinking anything, if one first blesses in this way, transforms it, and then offers it to the Buddhas and the meditational deities, and one accumulates a great deal of merit. And so in the morning, like when one is practicing, if one sticks one finger in this inner offering and then tastes this and follows the accompanying meditation, this is also a very effective means for purifying the mind of obscurations and unwholesome mental imprints. And so now there are many benefits from making this kind of blessing. And now that we've received the initiation, we're not actually allowed even to take a little handful of water without first blessing it. And so as one is eating or drinking anything, if one makes this blessing and then makes the offering to the Buddhas, to one's guru, inseparable from the meditational deity, then with each swallow, there is said to be like the merit from making offerings to the whole array or whole lot of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. See, also you want to remember America means Douglas and Douglas
And so this is very, very helpful. This is very important, this practice of blessing. And so it's to be done when we eat, and we can't get by without eating. If one's in poverty, that's another thing. But here in America, it seems like people are eating all the time, as if they're almost making a living out of eating. And so even if one can't do this extensive technique of blessing before eating, if one can simply recite these 3 letters 3 times on Ahung, this also is one can thereby also accumulate merit. And so as Rinpoche is talking about the eating and drinking, the time for eating is going by. And so the day after tomorrow, Rinpoche will be giving the blessing, so literally the blessing for Vajradakini or Vajrayogini. And if one wants to receive this, which is like an initiation, if one wants to receive this, there is a commitment to be following one of the sadhanas, and to be daily practicing one of the sadhanas, to be reciting the mantras. This must be done every day. It can be either done in a very concise way, abbreviated form, or very extensive form, but this must be done. And then also 2 times a month on the 10th and I believe the 25th of the lunar days of each month, then there's also special practices must be followed. This, if one feels one can keep the commitment and would like to receive it, then this is possible. But if not, if one does not follow the commitment, then there are simply disadvantages accruing from this. And so that one should consider for oneself whether one will request this and receive it. And konzo ki nancholi chena ti shugi gena ene dake karta dingde jungo gres di jene da kilen ten yorave dingde